Distinguished guests, welcome to another episode of Life on the Grid, hosted by Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish and Ben Schneider. Tonight we welcome Nathan Solomon, managing editor at the Podium Finish. Grab a bite, grab a drink, and enjoy this episode of Life on the Grid.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Life on the Grid. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish and with me is Ben Schneider from Grid Live Encore. Let's jump right into our hot topic this evening before our guest arrives. We all know that Elon Musk bought Twitter recently and made a lot of changes. A bunch of people got fired as Twitter downsized, and one of the most notable changes was $8 per month to receive verification with a blue check mark. Unfortunately, without a way to actually verify a person's identity, we saw a lot of impersonations happening and misinformation spreading like wildfire. This program was suspended and remained inactive during the recording of this episode. Someone created a fake Eli Lilly Twitter account with a blue check mark, claiming the company was giving away free insulin. They lost billions of dollars over this. Their stocks tanked on Wall Street, and other companies were negatively affected too. And Ben, given the recent developments that we just saw before it came on the air tonight, it seems like everything I just mentioned, it seems so small now considering what may happen to Twitter moving forward. Ben, do you think any random person on Twitter should have a blue check mark? And what's your reaction to this news that we're seeing on this Thursday night, which could very well be the end of Twitter in the not so distant future?
Well, I got to tell you, Kobe, I think it's kind of hard to predict and make like a doomsday scenario. Google Plus lasted about 2 years more than I ever would have imagined that site would have lasted. So I'm not convinced somebody might not step in here at the 11th hour, and Elon Musk might find some desperate volunteers to help keep things afloat until things settle down a little bit, or who knows what all is going to happen. But it certainly looks like things are crashing and burning at the moment if you look at what's trending at the moment. I'll take the first part of that question though, and speak on verification here. And I want to be very clear, before I get into this too much. I have a great amount of respect for Elon Musk and everything that he has accomplished with Tesla Motors and SpaceX and other endeavors of his. He is in a lot of ways a brilliant mind. Maybe not so much when it comes to some of the changes that he's made to Twitter. But I totally respect what he's accomplished with those projects and, changing the world for the better in many respects with the technology that he's been able to be at the forefront of. And, I don't want to, take away from that in any regard here. But when it comes to Twitter, and that's not to say I'm sure he didn't make mistakes when he got started with Tesla and SpaceX as well. But, I don't even know if Musk's Twitter vision is going to allow him enough time to learn from these mistakes and bounce back. Because, like you said, Kobe, it does seem, you look at these trends right now, it seems like people are convinced that this is the end of Twitter. But, at the same time, I'm thinking back to the whole net neutrality thing that went down 5 years ago, and people were convinced that was the end of the internet. So, you never know what's going to happen with these sorts of things. But when it comes to Musk's verification plan, in particular, I think this was probably what he was most criticized for, at least before this week, with all these layoffs and everything, and this Twitter 2.0 controversy or whatever it is. I've been trying to, stay away from it, to be honest with you, because I'd imagine it's just so draining to read and go through here. But, when it comes to verification, I get what Musk was trying to do, and I do agree that the verification process was very flawed. I think there are people out there that didn't have verification checks and applied for verification and got denied that probably deserved a verification check mark, based on the field that they're in and the following that they have and the job that they have. At the same time, I think there are also probably some people that had verification that probably didn't deserve to have verification. So I think, it was certainly a flawed system that needed an overhaul in many respects, and maybe make applying for it a little bit easier than it has been in recent years. I remember a few years ago, they halted the verification application process entirely and just seemed to start handing them out arbitrarily here. But, the bigger problem for me is not even so much buying verification. If they wanted to have like a two-step or two-factor verification, which you even see on some of the accounts right now, they have like the official code or tag underneath their name when you look at their tweets. And people could buy the regular check mark for $8, and the accounts that would have earned the check mark, the old-fashioned way, would have that official tag. I don't know that I agree with that wholeheartedly, but I think that would be a more plausible solution than just handing it out to anybody who buys Twitter Blue, which ended up being what they did. And you quickly ran into problems with that, and everybody knew that this problem was going to come up. And the first thing that I saw was somebody created an account that was at King James with a Z on the end. They stole and copy and pasted LeBron James's profile picture, and they got the check mark because they subscribed the account to Twitter Blue, and they put out a tweet saying, I'm very grateful for my time in Los Angeles, but I'm requesting a trade from the Lakers. And, the likes and retweets started pouring in, and nobody paid attention to what the actual handle was. And, that caused a bit of craziness over on NBA Twitter, I'm sure. And then obviously, on a much more serious note, what happened with Eli Lilly, like you mentioned, Kobe, and of course, the stock tanking, and I think people, genuinely getting hurt by the fake news or fake tweet that was put out on that account. So, I think that the bigger issue for me is that if this was going to be an option, there still needed to be an application process where you had to prove your identity, prove your first and last name, prove that you weren't a bot, and all that stuff before the verification actually was handed out and put through. And obviously that wasn't the case. So, do I think any random person on Twitter should have a blue check mark? I see that's the question here in official terms. I guess the simple answer is no. I don't believe any random person should. I would be a little bit more open to the idea of buying verification if, there was a more rigorous process of proving who you are before just getting any account that subscribes to Twitter Blue or whatever it is verified in that regard. But, I think this kind of is all blown over, with the developments today. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Everybody's plugging the heck out of their Instagrams and TikToks and Facebook pages and websites and Substacks and all that good stuff because they're convinced that this might very well be the end. I don't know that I'm at that doomsday point yet. Maybe I will be by the time this episode airs, or maybe this will all blow over. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's going to be a very interesting few days on Twitter and probably on the internet as a whole, nonetheless.
Yes, as you said, Ben, it's really hard to predict the future, and it's really crazy to see how all of this is unfolded. And as you rightfully said, I think there's a lot of great things that Elon Musk has done with his career, especially with Tesla, SpaceX. I think Elon Musk has a brilliant mind, but even some of the most intelligent people on the planet, they're not going to be successful in every avenue. Maybe somehow Elon Musk can get out of the muck and turn Twitter into a success over time. But right now, it doesn't look good at all for him or Twitter in general. And getting back to the question about if any random person on Twitter should be able to have a blue check mark, I'm in full agreement with you, Ben. I don't think that any average Joe should be able to get a blue check mark. And if there is a verification system, as you said, I think there needs to be a way for you to be able to identify yourself rather than just putting your debit card number and boom, I got a blue check mark. And coming from a journalistic perspective, I know there's been some journalists who are on both sides of the equation where if you're like somebody who's trying to make a name for yourself, you feel like that getting this blue check mark will make you look more legitimate and have more people come to your page and see you as someone who is legit. And other people like me, and this is the side where I fall on, it is very frustrating seeing that people are able to buy a blue check mark, because I came up, being told that if you want something, you have to go out and earn it. And when I was able to write for Business Insider and The Drive, under the old verification system now, they wanted you to write for actually write 3 articles under verified media outlets in a 6-month period. I was able to get 2 in that 6-month period, wasn't able to get the third one, unfortunately, but I plugged in one of my other really good articles I was proud of, and I got denied. I'm not saying that I myself deserve to be verified or anything like that. I actually don't think I've done enough to be verified on Twitter, but been verified on Twitter under the old system, that was certainly a major goal of mine. I wanted to earn it through my own hard work and my success, because to me that would be special, because verification used to be something that you felt proud of, because it is, like an elite club, because there was only a certain number of people who had the blue check mark, and if you have that by your name, it shows you that you've actually done something with your life. You did something that mattered, something that people noticed, and that was something I hope that I would be able to experience someday by earning the blue check mark rather than buying it. So buying a blue check mark, it really doesn't sit well with me at all.
Yeah, well, I'll just speak on behalf of both of us here. I think you're probably a little bit more deserving than me at this point, if we were to talk about our own statuses, because you've got a substantially larger follower count than me on Twitter. You've been at this a little bit longer than I have, but I tend to agree. I'm not, I don't think that, one of the reasons that I did it, aside from the fact that I don't want to pay for yet another subscription service with Twitter Blue, is, I don't feel like that I'm at that point that where, somebody needs to look at my account and see that I'm verified and then come to find out that I only have 439 followers or whatever it is. I suppose that might go down in the next couple of days if people start deactivating their accounts, or if the site implodes, or who all knows what's going to happen, like I said. But, I tend to agree. I think that, I again see both sides of it. And I know even a couple of our own colleagues here at Grid have opted into it. And, I understand their decisions for doing so. And we'll see. Again, it may not make much of a difference in the next couple of weeks. We'll see where Twitter ends up going. But, it's again, I want to be clear. I understand what Elon Musk was trying to do. I don't doubt that he had good intentions in many respects, but I just think, his fatal flaw seems to have been that he just absolutely rushed into this and didn't think of all the implications. Like, there were stories that, Twitter's employees had, less than a week to implement these changes, or else they were going to get fired. And I just think, to put your employees through something like that, without thinking of all the ramifications and, taking time to develop and make sure that you haven't overlooked anything. And clearly they overlooked some things with what happened with LeBron James and Eli Lilly. I just think that was probably a pretty big mistake. And I think the proof of that is being seen in what's going on with Twitter right now.
Yeah, definitely. The proof is in the pudding. And the reason why I didn't get the Twitter Blue to get the blue check mark is because I expected Twitter to end up exactly where it is tonight. I didn't have any faith or any confidence that Twitter was going to last long enough. So I may end up looking really smart here and keeping my $8. But as you're saying, some members of our Grid team decided to get the Twitter Blue. Totally respect their decision. Understand why they made the decision that they did. But for me, I decided not to do it because I just didn't have the confidence. And given the way things are now with the economy and inflation, $8 means a lot to a person like me. So I don't want to just randomly just throw away $8 like that. And then Twitter fails. If Twitter's still around a year from now, I may decide to get Twitter Blue, especially if I have confidence that it's going to be around here long term. And getting back to what I was saying about getting a blue check mark in the past, used to be special because it's like you're a part of a small club. And I've used this example with other people off the air. Like imagine, the new iPhone is coming out right before Christmas. You're in a group of 10 friends. I have the new iPhone, and when I'm with my 10 friends, they all have older model phones, and I feel like I'm on top of the world. So I feel like I have something that's so special. And then March rolls around, all of myself and all of my friends have a new iPhone. Is it really special then? No, it's not, because everybody has an iPhone. So that's the point I was trying to make about the blue check mark. It's not special when everybody has one.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's $8 per month, right? It's not like a one-time thing where you just pay the $8 and you have it in perpetuity. Like it's a subscription service that you have to keep paying. And I have Peacock, obviously, for all the IndyCar and racing stuff NBC's got on there. I got a really good deal on Paramount Plus when it launched. Obviously, I have all the big ones like Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu. I subscribe to The Athletic because I really like Jeff Gluck's content and been following his career for a long time. Those are just all the ones off the top of my head. I know I've got more. HBO Max, you can throw that in there, because there's always like one or two things that pull me in, from all of them. And it all adds up very quickly. Try to add another onto that just to give myself some sort of status symbol and the ability to post longer videos. I just didn't see it being worth the price of admission, if you will, particularly if the site's about to implode. But again, we'll just have to wait and see on that front.
Well, Ben, I believe it's time to introduce Our guest, I know him well. He's our managing editor at the Podium Finish and a college student at the University of St. Bonaventure. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Nathan Solomon. Nathan, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure, Nathan. Really excited to have you on. And we'll start off tonight by discussing your rise to our managing editor role at the Podium Finish. You rose through the ranks faster than anyone I've ever seen at our media outlet. I know I've been at Podium Finish for several years now. I'm not surprised though at all, given your hard work, determination, and the numerous articles you pump out each week. You and our editor-in-chief, Rob Youngson, are one of the hardest working people we have at the Podium Finish. So my first question for you, how do you become a member of the Podium Finish, and how do you rise so quickly from just being a regular team member to one of the most important roles in the team, working so closely with the editor-in-chief?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. But yeah, it's been really crazy. Like it's been so fast. I mean, I really, it's really only been a little over a year that I've been with TPF. So I was writing for an outlet called Empire Sports Media at the time. I was doing a lot of baseball writing, like MLB, New York Yankees. I'm from New York, right? So I basically kind of started to drift into some of the NASCAR stuff with Empire Sports Media. I covered a couple of races in like July and August of 2021. So I did like Pocono and Watkins Glen. But then I started to realize that like this is really what I love. I really love doing it with the NASCAR stuff. And then I'll never forget it. So playoff media day in 2021 for the Cup Series. It was on Zoom. We had like Zoom sessions with all 16 drivers. That was actually the day that I came across Rob, and I remember I it was a new name in the Zoom. I'd never seen him before, and so I looked him up on Twitter, and I was like, oh man, he's a St. Bonaventure graduate student. Like that's crazy. So we connected on Twitter that day, and then I remember later that day I kind of had my first like big moment too in NASCAR journalism. I kind of helped break some news, some JTG Doherty news, like when they downsized from 2 charters to 1 charter. I was able to kind of help break that news and kind of get my name out there big time. So that day, that playoff media day was really crucial into getting into this role. And then a couple weeks later, Rob brought me on as a staff writer. I think that was my designation at first. And then I just pushed out as much content as possible. I love the Xfinity series. I did a lot of Xfinity series writing, some season and review stuff in the off season. And then come March, I was getting ready to cover my first few races, and I was able to get the promotion to managing editor. So it's been kind of surreal, like how quick this journey's been. But it's been so amazing, and I can't thank Rob and the whole team at TPF for bringing me on and trusting me to be a part of this role and part of this team. Excuse me.
Yeah, Nathan, you've certainly done a really, really good job with our team, with all of your content. I read a lot of the pieces you put up on the website. Always, a masterpiece. I know myself when I'm writing my articles, I'm never satisfied. I've learned in recent years that I'm kind of a perfectionist. I really hate to admit that, but before publishing, I find myself changing my articles several times because I'm never satisfied with that. I'm not sure if you're the same way, but overall, just seeing the determination and drive that you've had in such a short amount of time at a Podium Finish, it's been remarkable. As I said, I've never seen somebody come in like this so soon and rise to a, I guess, an executive like level with the Podium Finish and the amount of content you put out. I think you write more articles per week than I write in like 2 or 3 months. So it just goes to show how driven you are to succeed and move forward with your career. And for anyone who writes an article, there are some pieces that we're really proud of more than others. At other times, we kick ourselves and wonder how we could have done a better job at a certain piece, as I was just alluding to in my own way. Based on the articles you've written so far, which one are you most proud of and why?
So, well, kind of going back to your point a minute ago, like I think there's always a little bit of self-doubt, right? Like you write something, and you're like, oh man, like I don't think this is my best work, but like you kind of like not overlook it, but you're always just hard on yourself, right? You always want to do better, and I kind of feel that same way a lot of times. Even though if it's a piece that I know is a good piece for me, I always feel like, hey, this is something I could have done better. But going back to your question though, there's 2 articles in particular that I did this year that I was very, very proud of, and fortunate enough that I was able to cover both in person. So The first one was Salem 6 Hours weekend at Watkins Glen. Robert Wickens, he won the Michelin tire races, so his first victory since his tragic IndyCar crash in 2018. I was able to write a story about that, and that was so cool, just being able to talk to him after that and just to be there for that moment, and then to write a story about it. And then a few weeks later at Pocono, kind of these two stories kind of like cross a little bit, but Sage Karam, involved in a tragic accident in 2015 in the IndyCar race at Pocono. And it took a lot of courage out of him to be able to come back to Pocono, 7 years later and race for the first time. So I was able to document that and talk with him, and put out a story that I was very, very proud of about, his story and journey to get back to the point of just racing at Pocono. So those were only like 3 weeks apart from each other. And those were definitely two of the stories that I was the most proud of in my journalism career, but especially this year.
Yeah, and I remember that piece you wrote about Sage Karam. It was a really, really good piece, and really nice to see Sage open up and be vulnerable with everything he went through after the horrific accident in IndyCar that took Justin Wilson's life at Pocono. And I know Sage went through a really rough time for several years, and it's nice to see that he got the help that he needed, and now Sage is in a much better place right now as he moves forward with his racing career. And one of the articles that I'm most proud of is one I got to do for the mainstream media outlet Business Insider. Some people came to me after Bubba Wallace won at Talladega last fall, and they wanted me to do a piece on Bubba, like what it meant from someone who's Black and into motorsports. And I was really shocked they asked me to do that, but I put the piece together. The editor over there really liked it. It ran. It was really popular. I was even told that Bubba Wallace himself read it and really enjoyed the piece. Really, really nice to do that. It's nice to see a lot of young people in motorsports media doing some really great things, and being a part of a great team like ours over at the Podium Finish. There are many opportunities to get real firsthand experience being a journalist, whether you're doing interviews over the phone, through the internet like we're doing right now, or getting to the track where all the action is. There are multiple ways to get your content out there. I know you've been fortunate to receive on-site media credentials and travel to various tracks to cover NASCAR races while balancing your commitments in the classroom as a college student. As a young journalist like Manny, trying to make a name for yourself in this industry, how has the on-site media coverage helped provide valuable experience as you move forward in your career? And which track you've been to so far with credentials was your favorite?
I mean, being able to cover races in person like I have been these last couple of years, I mean, it's an experience that will forever better me as a person and a journalist. I mean, I just learned so much being able to go out on my own by myself. And, my first year, when I covered those two races with Empire Sports Media, I kind of had pretty free reign where I was able to just kind of learn all by myself. Like I didn't really have, direct guidance of what exactly I was supposed to do on site. It was basically, all right, you're on site, with us here, write stories, make it worth it, give us good coverage. And it was a learning experience those first couple of times. But by the time I went over to TPF, I was really able to be a lot more confident in what I was doing. And the more classwork I was taking on, I took some more high level journalism courses last year, so my sophomore year at St. Bonaventure. That was able to help me big time. And so when I went to the track for the first time in April, I felt, miles better than what I did the last time I was at the track, both in terms of confidence, like asking questions, being in the media center, just having a presence there, and then also the content that I'm pushing out. So it's certainly been a grind. Like, I mean, a lot of late night car drives, like over the summer, I mean, I drove 7 hours back from Loudon overnight. I mean, a rain delayed race, left at 9:00 at night, had to get back for work at 5:30 in the morning. I mean, I've just kind of learned to have to embrace the grind, and whether it's balancing work in journalism, whether it's balancing school in journalism, it's just always a grind. So, that's certainly been a huge learning experience. But in terms of my favorite track that I've been able to, I guess, learn a lot from, I think I'd definitely have to be Watkins Glen. I mean, I only live about 45 minutes away from Watkins Glen International, so I've been pretty fortunate to have some great experience up there. I've covered 3 races up there, 2 NASCAR weekends and an IMSA weekend. I've just been able to talk to so many great drivers. just having Kimi Räikkönen, like having him there for the NASCAR race in August, that was a super incredible experience, and so fortunate that I was able to be there and cover that. So just being able to cover 2 series there, that's the only time I really ventured outside of the NASCAR stuff. So it definitely has to be Watkins Glen, and of course it's my favorite racetrack to be at too.
Yeah, and looking at NASCAR attendance numbers, it seems like it's everybody else's favorite racetrack too. It seems like year after year, Watkins Glen is a sellout, and that's the one track that people want to go to, especially if they've never been to there. And I also want to bring up a good point you made about journalism. It is an absolute grind. Matt Weaver from Racing America, he's told the story many times of whenever he's going to places in the past and even today, to a certain extent, where he'll go somewhere and he'll just sleep in his truck, to save money, because it's a lot cheaper to just sleep in your truck rather than try to get a motel room or a hotel room for the night. And the grind, it just goes to show you how bad all of these journalists out here want it, whether you're young just starting out or a seasoned veteran like Matt Weaver. It is an absolute grind, and the ones who want it the most, who really want to make this career, they're willing to do sometimes some really crazy things in order to make it and last in this industry. And Nathan, you really have that grind, and I'm sure you're going to continue to do really, really great things forward in your journalism career.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I just learned, you just got to learn to embrace it, right? I mean, because I do so much, whether it's like the NASCAR stuff or even the non-NASCAR stuff, right? I mean, I have so many commitments here at school too. Like, I know we might talk about it a little bit more later, but, like I'm the sports director at the radio station on campus. I'm the managing editor of the school newspaper on campus. I'm writing for a couple other outlets, for college basketball and locally in Olean. So that's where St. Bonaventure is. So, I always have a lot of stuff going on, so you just kind of gotta learn to balance it, manage your time, and I'm hoping it'll pay off here in the end.
Yeah, it really seems like your schedule is pretty jam packed. I'm surprised you had enough time to fit in this Life on the Grid interview with us. And before one on air tonight, I was telling Ben backstage, you write a whole bunch of articles every week for the Podium Finish, and then I see you posting articles about St. Bonaventure from like several different sports and a whole bunch of other things. I'm like, where does he find the time? How does he pump out so many of those articles? I'll be honest with you, I would not be capable of pushing out the same quality and quantity of content that you're pushing out. So more power to you there. It's really, really impressive that you're able to do that. And speaking of Ben, I'm going to dip out for a second while you and him get to chat a little bit.
Well, Nathan, you and Kobe had a great discussion about the Podium Finish and the positive experience you've had there. Now we want to get to know you a little bit more away from the track. We all know how invested you are in motorsports. I'd love to hear more about your knowledge of the New York sports scene. I'm sure you know I'm a Philly sports fan myself, but besides auto racing, what are some other sports that you follow closely, and which teams are your favorites? Do you stick in the New York area, or do you venture out to other parts of the country when it comes to your favorite sports teams?
I am usually a New York person. I will say that. I mean, you said you're a Philly sports fan, so I was very much rooting for the Phillies to beat the Astros there, as much as I hate the Astros. But yeah, I'm basically all New York. So New York Yankees, New York Rangers, New York Jets, and New York Knicks. So all things New York. My college teams are all New York. So St. Bonaventure, Cornell. That was kind of my local school for like where I grew up. So I grew up in the Ithaca area, not far at all. So yeah, I'm all things. All things New York sports, but honestly, I'll watch anything. Like I'm a huge college basketball fan, so like right before we got on, I was watching some college hoops. I always love watching college basketball, whether it's Kentucky or in Kansas or two very, very low D1s. So love watching that, and I love watching golf too. Golf's also one of my favorite sports, and I work at a golf course, so I play golf whenever I can. So really, I'll watch anything. I just love all forms of sports.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm pretty much the same way. And, I'm sure you've been following things yourself as well. Probably it's been a great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. And yet here in Philly, we've lost 2 major sporting championships on the same day, no less, with the Phillies and the Union. I think the Union was actually the more heartbreaking one for me because I was just impressed that the Phillies even pushed it to 6 games. I think the Astros were clearly the better team. The Phillies just kind of went on this magical run at the right time as the 6th seed in the new expanded Major League Baseball playoffs. But the Union had MLS Cup 1, and then they let LAFC march down the field with only 10 men, and Gareth Bale scored this incredible equalizer, and then they lost it on penalty kicks, which was pretty unfortunate for us here, but the Eagles are still doing pretty well. At least I know they just got their first loss of the season, but we'll see how far they can go as the NFL season continues on. Well, next, here's a popular question we've asked most of our recent guests here on the show. I'm curious to see how you'll answer it. What's the one thing that you would highlight that most people probably don't know about you?
That would highlight that most people don't know about me. Honestly, I guess kind of like my job. Like I don't really like talk about it like much on social media. In the summer, as much NASCAR stuff and motorsport stuff that I'm doing, I also work, like 30, 35 hours a week at a golf course. So that kind of goes back to my, embracing the grind thing, right? Like I wake up at 5 a.m. for work, go take care of a golf course for several hours, maybe throw a little golf in there in the afternoon and then come home and, do the NASCAR stuff, write stories, go to Zoom calls when I can make it out of the Zoom calls, work on stuff I've been able to get from the track the last couple times I've been at there. Because like that's part of it. Like I just have to like kind of like stockpile interviews, quotes, clips, so that when I'm home and I might have 2.5 months between races, I have stuff I can work on. But it probably has to be my job that I'm a greenskeeper at a golf course too. So I guess I'm kind of the jack of all trades, if you will.
That's crazy. So you do all this work for the Podium Finish, getting all these articles out there, all this stuff for St. Bonaventure, and you work at a golf course?
Yes. Well, yeah, 4 months a year, basically. So that's only my summer job. So like in the winter, I don't really have a full-time job or anything. But, in the summer, as soon as I get away from St. Bonaventure, it's kind of golf course mode.
Well, I definitely respect how much you're committed to the grind, as they say. And I can imagine you're a very busy man. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to talk to us for a little bit.
Always.
Yeah. Well, we've heard about your favorite sports teams and something that most people wouldn't know about you. I want to hear a few other things that make you happy and kind of define you as a person. So outside of motorsports and journalism, what are some of your other favorite hobbies when you have the free time? The little free time that you have, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like I don't do a very good job of like giving myself free time. In the summer, I do play golf a lot, right? Like I'm at the golf course all the time. Usually when I'm done done with work for the day, I'll go out and play 18 holes with some friends or some coworkers. So I like to do that a lot. Like I'll play golf in a golf league a couple times at night, or a couple nights a week rather. Love to go swimming. Love going to the beach. The beach is my favorite spot. I wish I could be at the beach all the time. So those are definitely a couple of things. I'll play some video games here and there, but I don't always have time for that. I'd love to try out some iRacing. I don't have a rig or anything. I don't have the software or anything, but I guess that's kind of a little bit of a bucket list thing I love to try. So, as much as the warm weather stuff I like the beach and golf and everything, I guess it doesn't mix well that I live in New York, but as we're about to get like 6 feet of snow in the area. So, but no, I love golf a lot. That's kind of my go-to hobby.
Oh, I know there's talk about this Bills game maybe being moved to Detroit again or postponed or, something that you guys are going to have to deal with all that snow. So certainly hoping for the best for that it's not too difficult or, anything like that for you guys. And I totally agree. I wish I had more time to play video games. I got to give a shout out to my friend Ethan Smith. When I went out to Sonoma this year to cover the race with Brock Beard and NASCAR, he let me try out his little iRacing set up for a little bit, and it did not go very well. I think I'll stick to the PlayStation games with a controller and more what I'm used to for the future, but I do wish I had more time for those as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I watched the iRacing Pro Invitational a couple of weeks there, like the championship event that got held at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Like it's impressive. Like those guys are so good on there. Like I would never ever have that time to like be able to kind of grind it out the way they do and just get so good at that, because that takes a whole skill in itself. So those guys they're impressive, but I definitely love to try it one day when I have the chance.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just like anything else in life, I mean, the guys that are at the top are the ones that are really devoting their entire schedules to it. And obviously what we're trying to do in the world of sports media here, I don't think either of us would have anywhere near enough time to get to that level and compete there. And I've like I said, only tried it a couple of times. So, something I'd like to try out again, but at the same time, I hear that it's like a money pit. Like you just keep pouring money into it to buy new cars and buy new tracks. And I just don't think I'd have enough time to commit to it to make it worth that for me. But we'll see if I get any opportunities to try it out again in the future. In the meantime, Kobe's going to come back on here, I think, and talk to you about some other media ventures of yours. So we'll let you get to that.
Thank you, Ben. And in response to I believe it's the Bills and Browns game, I think they said earlier the game will indeed move to Detroit. And I'm kind of disappointed because I was looking forward to seeing a blizzard game. I think it was the Bills and Colts several years ago that played in like this really crazy blizzard. Thought it was a whole lot of fun, really chaotic. But I also understand why they're moving it. You know, at the end of the day, you have to think about safety to all the fans traveling to the game and all of that, especially when they're calling for like 4, 5, 6 feet of snow, which is really unprecedented. well, at least to us down here, not up there near you, Nathan, where you are, because it seems like it snows pretty often up there in the north. And besides your responsibilities over at the Podium Finish, I understand you've been very busy covering other sports, as you've already alluded to, especially on your campus at St. Bonaventure. When I was a freshman in college at UNC Charlotte, they told us we needed to get involved and be willing to do almost anything to create an impressive resume for future employers to look at. I've checked out everything you've done up to this point. I can say that your portfolio is stacked. You're definitely quite the hustler and the go-getter needed to be successful in this field. Can you share more about everything you've done in media outside of motorsports?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of quick little story for you here. So, ninth grade, it is November, and I was I was trying out for the JV basketball team, and I basically got told after tryouts that like, oh, I wouldn't play very much, I wouldn't practice very much, so I quit the team. And that year, I got season tickets to go watch the Cornell basketball team. So I referenced them earlier. They're only like 10 minutes from my house. So Cornell University, I'm very close to them. And for a couple of years, I go to their games all the time. And so after 11th grade, so a couple of years of being a season ticket holder there, I was still kind of like trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then in 11th grade, sorry, it was in 11th grade that year. So 2 years of being a season ticket holder, I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was kind of leaning towards something in sports, like sports media, but I wasn't 100% sure. Like part of me wanted to do business. Part of me actually wanted to become like a commercial airline pilot, but I decided I wanted to try like sports media stuff. So I started writing for an outlet called Ivy Hoops Online, and that outlet still exists today. I'm still writing for them, so that's awesome. I enjoy doing that, and I just tried some stuff out. And after a little bit, I was getting credentials at Cornell basketball games to cover the team, and I loved it. So that was kind of my first impression, and I absolutely loved being there. I loved the experience of like sitting in press row and everything. And from there, I decided, yep, this is what I want to do. So applied to schools. I got denied from like my top 3 schools. University of Maryland, I really wanted to go there super bad, but I got denied. And that was kind of the best thing that could happen, because at the time I felt like I was stuck going to St. Bonaventure. And it was right before COVID. It was like, yeah, I'll do St. Bonaventure. It's only a couple hours from my house. It's an affordable option for me. Sure, let's do it. And I mean, I fell in love with it right away. So I'm writing for Ivy Hoops Online. I'm also writing for Empire Sports Media at that time too, because I wanted a little bit more to do outside of just Cornell basketball. So I was writing like New York Yankees articles, because the Yankees are my go-to team, kind of like what I mentioned. I'm all New York sports, but Yankees are like truly my team. So I was writing Yankees. I was writing Cornell basketball. I'm having a blast doing it. And COVID hits. I come to St. Bonaventure. And just like what you were saying, like I got told when I visited Bonaventure that I needed to get involved right away. So that's exactly what I did. I started writing for the campus newspaper. It's called the Bonaventure, ironically, of course. And then I started hosting a radio show for WSBU 88.3 FM. That's our campus radio station. So I started doing that. By my second semester in the spring year, I was already in the editorial board for the newspaper. And there wasn't a lot of sports going on. So my first semester, I was really digging deep to find stories. Like I had to find stories and learn to write stories of things that weren't necessarily like newsworthy. And that helped me a lot, just being able to find my own stories like that. And then we had some games, and I was covering the women's basketball team, still hosting a radio show. And coming to my sophomore year, then I started covering the men's team as well. And at this time, I'm still doing all the off-campus stuff that I had been doing. And then that kind of leads into at the beginning of that sophomore year to when I kind of got involved with the Podium Finish. And since then, I'm now the managing editor for the newspaper. When I'll be the editor-in-chief next semester. I'm currently the sports director for the radio station. And I'm in that role indefinitely for now, so at least until I graduate. and I'm writing for another local outlet, Tap into Greater Olean, as part of one of my classes. So I've been learning how to get learn just the general news writing stuff that I never really learned before, because everything I learned has been so sports driven. Now I get to learn actual news writing stuff and still do some sports along the way. But I'm certainly getting a well-rounded education, especially at St. Bonaventure. I've had a ton of opportunities come from the school itself, including this one, including the one with the podium finish. I mean, without connecting with Rob and finding out that he goes to St. Bonaventure, I don't know if this opportunity would have ever happened.
Yeah, it's really great that we were able to receive all of those incredible opportunities. I want to go more in detail about another great opportunity you got. I think it was last year or earlier this year, but I remember Rob shared an interesting clip in our team group chat on ESPN Plus. We heard a familiar voice calling what I believe, if I remember the sporting event correctly, was a college baseball game. But whatever sport it was, I know it was you, Nathan. It's pretty cool for you to be able to do something so unique with ESPN, with the coverage of sports there at St. Bonaventure, helping out with the production of each sporting event, performing some play-by-play and analysis duties too. Many college students can't say they got to do something quite like this. So here's my question for you. How proud are you of this accomplishment with ESPN Plus, and what's it like covering all the different types of sports?
Yeah, it's been really cool. So it started off in February. I did color for a women's basketball game, so the final game of the regular season, or at least the final home game. So I did color for that. That was kind of my little experimental trial run type thing to see if I did a good job or not. I guess I did. So I did some baseball, and I just did baseball in the spring. I did a few baseball games in the spring. I did one of the baseball games right after. The day after the Dover race, and the Dover race got pushed back a day, so I had to drive back super late from Dover, and I couldn't go to the postponed race on Monday because I had to get back and prepare for the game. So yeah, that kind of goes back to the whole embracing the grind thing. You got to make sacrifices at times, but yeah, I've been doing that in the fall. So these last couple of months, I've been calling men's soccer games on ESPN Plus as the color analyst, and now this winter, I'm doing some more women's basketball for them. And then I'm also doing women's basketball on the radio station. So I've done a little play-by-play. I've done a little, been in the analyst role a couple times for all 3 women's games. We've done 1 men's game as well. So I'll continue to basically call all the women's basketball games in some way, shape, or form, whether it's on ESPN Plus or on the radio. So no, it's been an awesome opportunity. I came to the school knowing I could get that opportunity if I just put in the work and just keep grinding things out. I started it in a production class last year, and that turned into some of the on-air talent stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. I know my role with the ESPN Plus portion of the J school at Bonaventure is just going to keep expanding for me. And in the spring, I'm really going to be calling a ton of games and into next year as well.
Yeah, calling a ton of games, getting some more reps in, getting a lot more experience behind the mic. I wanted to ask a follow-up question about St. Bonaventure. So, I don't really know a lot about the university you and Rob both attend, but I just want to know, is this school how do I put this? So does St. Bonaventure have a really, really good journalism program? Is this university really tailored around journalism? Is this the strongest one of the I guess when you think of universities, is this one of the programs that St. Bonaventure is most proud of?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're a very small school. We only have 1,800 students, and I know you're from the Charlotte area, so you're probably familiar with Davidson College a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're really small too. I mean, the 2 smallest D1 programs are Davidson and St. Bonaventure. So we only have a couple of I think we only have 5 or 6 different programs or schools. So Bonaventure is really proud of all their schools, but I mean the J school is nationally accredited, and they just give students so many different opportunities. I mean, whether it's on campus, like what I mentioned, the campus media, ESPN Plus, the connections that you get. One of the top ESPN reporters, Adrian Wojnarowski, he's at ESPN, or he's a St. Bonaventure graduate. So they just have such a very, very impressive alumni database and collection of alumni who have done incredible things in the sports media field. So it's small, but it's really gained that reputation, and we've helped push that reputation as students as well. In February, I had the opportunity of a lifetime to go to Radio Row in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl 56, being able to interview athletes all week long, going in advance of the game. And it felt like we were getting interviewed as much as we were interviewing athletes. Like, different outlets were coming up to us, interviewing us, giving us the publicity. We did an interview with NBC. It aired somewhere. I don't really know where, but, just things like that. Like, we promoted ourselves basically as much as the schools promoted ourselves. So that kind of makes sense. So it's just with the amount of opportunities for such a small school and like the location of this place. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're like an hour and a half from any city, any like any sort of life. So it's pretty impressive for what Bonaventure in the J school has really been able to accomplish with a school that small.
Yeah, it sounds really impressive, and I learned something new. I had no idea that Woj is a alumni of St. Bonaventure. I love getting those Woj bombs, especially during free agency and during the NBA draft before the pick is actually announced. So it seems he's always posted whoever's getting picked before we actually find out ourselves. And I know down in North Carolina, I visited High Point University before I decided to go to UNC Charlotte. One of the coolest things about High Point University, they take great pride in their journalism program. I believe 2 members of the NASCAR media went there. I know for sure Peter Strata went there, and I also think Noah Lewis went there as well. So 2 well-known members of NASCAR media. It was a really great school, and I actually got to see inside of their communications / journalism department. And it is really amazing. They actually have a set in there that looks very similar to what ESPN looks like in Bristol, Connecticut, which is super impressive. I feel like if I would have went to High Point University, I would have had a lot more opportunities and able to do a lot of great things in journalism in general. But there's a few things that kept me from going there. Number one, private university, the cost wasn't really in the budget for me. So I decided that UNC Charlotte would certainly be a more doable option, and I did have some good things happen at UNC Charlotte. Being down there in NASCAR country, as we like to call it, able to connect with some of the drivers. I was able to meet Jesse Little, Anthony Alfredo, Stephen Parsons. Met him in the library one time when I was in a study group. So you get to meet a lot of faces down there. So I kind of chose location, although the UNC Charlotte journalism program I'll admit, it's not as strong as it is at certain universities like High Point or University of St. Bonaventure. But at the end of the day, don't regret the decision. I think I was able to do a lot of interesting things there during my time at UNCC. And typically when members of the motorsport media come on this particular show, we like to give each individual the chance to provide advice to anyone who excuse me, anyone who might be a college student like you watching right now and wanted to go down a similar path. I received a lot of advice from people along the way as I tried to find my own footing in this type of business. I listened to some of the advice given to me. Other advice I ignored, probably to discuss with some of my mentors. Some helped me make gains, failing to listen to others caused me to fail in certain areas. But, that's just a part of life. You live and you learn. Now we'll give you a chance to put in your 2 cents. What advice would you give someone who wants to be a motorsports journalist or just a journalist in general?
So I think this advice would go towards like when you're getting like your education for and you're at school. And this is my opinion. So I'm sure if any professors are listening, they won't like this. But in the end, in my opinion, it's experience over like your education itself or your academics itself. I wouldn't be where I am right now without the experience I've gotten. If I just did coursework, I'd come out of college and I'd be I guess so much lower on the totem pole versus someone who's involved and someone who just gets a lot of experience. And I've always just pushed myself to get as much experience as possible, whether it's, skipping classes to go cover a game or go to a race or whatever. I mean, last semester, I missed close to like 3 weeks of class just to go cover stuff, like whether it's a Super Bowl, a race, a St. Bonaventure basketball game. I personally, I mean, obviously academics are very important. You want to get a very high GPA and do well in school and get good grades. But, when I have an opportunity to cover something or an experience, I always prioritize that usually over my academics itself. But Those two aspects together create a great education at a place like St. Bonaventure. So my advice is just pursue every experience you can, and make that just as important, if not more important than your academics.
Yeah. The thing is, when I first got to college, I'm thinking I'm supposed to be in every single class and never miss a single class. But as I got there, I got advice from other people, and they were saying that you're going to learn more actually out in the field, experiencing things, finding successes, making mistakes, actually been out there covering events versus anything you're going to learn in the classroom, getting that real world experience, because there's only so much that you can learn in a communications / journalism style classroom. The real thing is being able to go out there, get the experience, and make the connections. Networking is really, really important. Sometimes a lot of these opportunities come down to who you know, and I can say that I wouldn't have received the opportunities that I've received if it wasn't for making some really, really key connections that I still rely on to this very day.
No, absolutely. Connections are everything. And, like I mentioned, kind of coming full circle a little bit again, but, TPF, I made that connection with Rob, and the Bonnie connection, that Bonaventure connection is so strong. Like, it's kind of like a cult, but it's a good cult. There's just so many connections. We're all so passionate. Everybody's so passionate about St. Bonaventure basketball and St. Bonaventure athletics. And I think at least everybody at this university, they can bond over that and connect over that. And then, those personal connections can also lead to some of those business connections that I was talking about. So, whether it's in the NASCAR field, I've been able to get, so many great connections in the NASCAR field, or just the general sports media in Bonaventure. I've been so fortunate to meet so many great people and connect with them, whether it's even just other students. You never know when some of those connections could help you out down the road. So got to connect with everybody, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And journalism is quite a journey. Some people will get to one area and they'll stay there for the rest of their career, while others, like to move around every few years and see so many different parts of the country. And I know for me, I kind of want to, find one place, and just kind of stay there for a while, but maybe I'll change my mind and want to move around the country, see the world and all of that. And I've been able to experience, I'm sure you have as well, where you'll have someone you connected with, have a really good connection with, but you get the news know that they're moving on to either a different field, sticking around in town, or they're going to be moving far away where you're probably not going to be able to see them again for a long time or even ever again. But the best thing is, in this field, you meet people who you keep in your life until your final day, and that's one of the most rewarding things about being in media to me. So somebody I met 4 years ago, I may still interact with them to this very day, whether they're in North Carolina, California, Idaho, Montana. This is really, really cool. All of the people that you're able to meet, and especially through social media. And I know right now Twitter's in a bit of turmoil. I know Ben and I talked about that at the beginning of the show, and social media has played a huge role in my career. And I even argue, without social media or Twitter in general, I wouldn't have made any type of gains at all in my own journalism career. And we're going to bring Ben back on, and you guys will go into that in a little more detail.
Well, Kobe, Nathan, I got to tell you, I know it's going to take us a few days to get this show edited and up onto our YouTube channel and all our socials and everything. But as we're taping this now, it's Thursday night. And if you look at, I don't know what your guys' Twitter timelines look like. Kobe, I just saw your tweet. It looks like a Twitter funeral. And looking at all the top trends on Twitter, people are plugging their Instagrams and their other forms of social media. So we'll see. I'm sure a lot's going to change in the next few days. And this conversation we're about to have might be all outdated by then. But Nathan, in recent weeks, Kobe and I have been going back and forth and talking about this $44 billion purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk, and specifically the whole fiasco with Twitter Blue, and any person who wants to being able to buy a blue verification check mark for $8 a month. And given the uncertainty around Twitter's future, and despite it being a major cesspool sometimes, I think you and I can both agree it's been a good networking tool for many people, sometimes arguably even better than finding something on LinkedIn or another platform specifically designed for that purpose. And I can speak for both Kobe and myself when I say we wouldn't have received such unique opportunities in this field without Twitter or without social media in general and making connections there. So I want to ask you, did social media play a major role in helping you get opportunities that you might not have gotten otherwise? And do you think people should be able to pay for verification instead of earning it the old-fashioned way through hard work and success?
So yeah, Twitter's been a huge help for me. I mean, I found basically every away from Bonaventure opportunity through Twitter. So when I wrote for Ivy Hoops Online, or I still do write for Ivy Hoops Online, I found them. I mean, I had followed the page before because I'm passionate about Ivy League hoops. I love Ivy League basketball. I'd followed that page in the past, and I saw they're looking for writers, and that's how I reached out and became part of that team. And that's the same for Empire Sports Media. They were looking for New York Yankees writers. I'd followed them on Twitter, and sure enough, I reached out and gave them a few writing samples, and there I was writing for them. And like that's where I connected with Rob at first, and that was Twitter after I came across him on one of the media Zooms. So if it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't have those three opportunities in particular. I'd probably still have the Bonaventure opportunities, but in terms of like the Twitter Blue stuff, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I certainly understand why. Like, I understand why some people do it. Like, there's some journalists that think that they are deserving of a blue check mark, so they think, hey, I need to buy one to validate myself. But then at the same time, then there's like burner accounts and fake accounts that can also spread misleading information. That's not very good for the app either. So hopefully it gets straightened out, because I'm a huge Twitter fan. I love going on Twitter. I'm literally on Twitter like every 10 seconds. It feels like anytime I have any free time whatsoever, I am on Twitter. So I'm really hoping this all gets straightened out and Elon Musk can come back down to earth and Twitter can be great for years to come.
Yeah, it's wild, and who knows what's going to happen at this point. But like you said, I can tell you, the opportunities I have right here on Grid Network. Kobe was one of my first mutuals and mutual follows back even 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. He came to me with this opportunity at the beginning of the 2021 season, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. That's something I wouldn't have gotten without Twitter, and what I'm doing with Brock Beard and Last Card at Info is the same way. I started interacting with Brock on Twitter, joined his Patreon, and he followed me back after a while, and I offered to help cover some of the ARCA series for him. And again, I knew who Brock was ever since NASCAR.com did that feature on him in 2010. But I never would have gotten to know him if it hadn't been through the interactions that we've had on Twitter. So, I'm with you. Hopefully, as frustrating as it can be sometimes, and as much of a cesspool as it can be sometimes, there are positives to it, and I hope that everything gets sorted out. But I suppose if it doesn't, there are always, other social media platforms that we can all find each other on. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. I also want to get your thoughts on a recent debate that ignited on NASCAR Twitter, if you will, a little while ago. I know Kobe probably knows a little bit more about this than me. He's been trying to fill me in, but from what I understand, it started with Parker Kligerman rightfully acknowledging a website, I believe it was Essentially Sports, that essentially put together a clickbait, misleading story about him, and he called it out accordingly. And then this led to an open conversation among motorsports media about the type of people who should be receiving these credentials to cover on-site events. And there was a lot of criticism about people who upload content onto YouTube, which isn't a new argument among the old school media members I know, but those that provide content, and those as well who provide content to those who get their news in a more modern fashion. I know that's been another source of controversy at times. Now, I understand on your own YouTube channel, you've posted a lot of good sound bites and gotten quite a bit of good traction with those. I know you've posted some videos as well on your Twitter page. We've seen more media members doing that in recent years, specifically Racing America's Matt Weaver has done that a lot with his short track interviews. Now it seems like everybody's caught on to it. And Kobe's told our own team here at Grid Network about the benefits of both writing but also producing video content and trying to have the best of both worlds. So in your opinion, why is it so important to have the best parts of both video and writing content nowadays in a constantly changing media landscape? And what do you think the criteria should be for issuing media credentials to NASCAR races?
Yeah, so it's certainly a lot to unpack, but I think that there's kind of this new modern swing. There's more people that would rather watch video content than read articles. And that's not to say that journalism is like completely dying. I know print journalism probably is, but there's plenty of people that still read articles online. But yeah, at the same time though, people would rather listen to a 2 or 3 minute interview clip or even a press conference than pick through some different stories to hear exactly what maybe their favorite driver said or exactly what happened with a specific incident in the race. So I think there is a balance to that. I mean, you look at some like the NASCAR YouTubers. I mean, they've really, grown such a following on there. There's several NASCAR YouTubers that, have, over 100,000 subscribers just based off of the video content. And they're able to get credentials and everything. So I think you kind of have to find that balance, right? I mean, when I go to the track, I post YouTube clips, I post Twitter clips, but at the same time, most race weekends, I'm also writing 5, 6, 7, 8 stories. So I find that balance, and I think the YouTube clips and the Twitter clips are very important, especially for a young, growing journalist like myself, to put my name out there, get people to see my name, recognize my name, learn my name, familiarize with me, trust me. Trust is so important in journalism. So it's finding that balance. And I think a lot of the people that had gotten criticized with that debate on Twitter, they're also people who typically don't cover races from the track. They're not interviewing drivers. They're, maybe pulling clips from a report that surfaces or a press release or maybe a Sirius XM interview. They're not people who are typically at the track covering stories, making their own original stories. Because even when I'm not at the track, I try to schedule phone interviews or a Zoom interview because I'm not typically the type of person who likes to, and really the entire TPF outlet, we don't like to, completely like recycle things. We don't want to use recycled quotes, recycled content. We want to get our own stuff as much as possible. Now with at track coverage, that's not always possible. With at track coverage, there's the media scrums and bullpens and press conferences, and those are very, very important. And I use those all the time for my race coverage. But in terms of feature writing, I get my own content, I get my own interviews, and that's very, very important. So, I think that's kind of sort of like a prerequisite. I mean, if you want to cover races and are trying to go on assignment at a NASCAR race, you have to show a willingness to get your own stories. I mean, whether it is in those media scrums, because you can do that. I mean, I've gotten plenty of my own stories in media scrums and press conferences, or if you're going to get interviews at the track. And, even though I put such an emphasis on video stuff, throughout this whole season, and especially when I'm at the track, every race weekend, I'm getting my own features, like in the Xfinity series. I'm going to, I'm going to haulers to interview drivers. Like my last race, I interviewed Austin Hill, and this year alone, I mean, I've done one-on-one interviews at the track with Austin Hill, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Ryan Vargas, Todd Bodine. Like, you have to show a willingness to get your own stories. So a lot of those people who have gotten criticized, it's just that recycled content, speculatory content, content just to try to get clicks. And that's kind of that line, in my opinion, for someone worth being credentialed versus somebody not worth being credentialed.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it too comes down to, a case-by-case basis and evaluating somebody's body of work. Is, there are a lot of YouTubers who primarily put out news and opinions and stories and try to genuinely report on the sports to the best of their abilities. And then there are others that are primarily playing the video games, maybe not the most recent NASCAR Ignition one, because I know it wasn't very good, but, just depending on what kind of NASCAR YouTuber, for lack of better terms, you are, I think that might play into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to the track to report on things happening. You're not going to the track to sit there and watch the race. I mean, yeah, of course you watch the race because for your own work, right? For the questions you ask after the race, the questions you ask in future races, to get an inside up close look that you can add those details to your story and, report on Twitter, going back to, a couple questions ago, what actually is going on. So, you actually have to show those true journalistic instincts versus, maybe piecing a few quotes together that, this could be happening with so-and-so in 2024 or whatever. I'm going to write a story with a catchy headline to try to get clicks. So that kind of goes back to that line. You just have to be getting your own content, in my opinion, versus using recycled content, if that makes sense.
No doubt. Well, we've heard a lot about the diverse background you have and that you've built for yourself in journalism that stretches beyond motorsports. And it sounds like after you finish your studies at St. Bonaventure, you're going to have several great opportunities or options available to you based on that body of work. So where do you see your career going from here, whether it's motorsports or some of the other sports that you covered at school, or maybe an entirely different beat?
Yeah, I mean, right now I want to be in motorsports. So I mean, I graduate in May 2024. The goal is hopefully to move to Charlotte and try to find something. I mean, I'd love to be, goal number one. I'd love to have a full-time job in NASCAR journalism, but if not, I'd love to do PR for a team or something. But right now that's the goal. That's the hope, to get something in motorsports. But if that does not work out, I feel pretty confident with what I've done, covering the St. Bonaventure basketball teams, the Cornell basketball team, that I could find something, whether it's on a college basketball beat or NBA beat or MLB beat. I feel like I've diversified my portfolio as a writer, and even like the news stuff that I'm doing right now, just reporting on, local town news. I think that when I graduate in, 18 months from now, I'll have a pretty complete and finished product where no matter what I try to go into, whether it's public relations or news journalism or sports journalism or content creation, or who knows what could happen in the next 18 months, whether I try to be a radio show host or a TV show host or a play-by-play announcer, I feel like I have a little bit of experience in everything where I can be very prepared for whatever. So again, my main goal is to be in motorsports, but a lot can certainly happen in 18 months.
Yeah, I know that for sure. I've every time I feel like I have my plans set for, a year or two down the road, I end up doing something or getting sucked into another endeavor I never would have imagined. So, I know things can certainly change very quickly, and this field is certainly no exception there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I thought 5 years ago, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be an airline pilot. And now here I am, writing about and reporting on NASCAR and college basketball, and all the while, and I have a job over the summer, working, 30 hours a week, and I'm taking 15 credits a semester. So it's crazy.
Yeah, well, we certainly look forward to seeing where your career goes. And now Kobe's going to come back here and say a few final words and help us close the show out tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And I also want to thank you, Nathan, for joining us tonight on Life on the Grid. And we definitely want to encourage all of our viewers to follow Nathan on social media, assuming Twitter sticks around, and I'm saying assuming in quotation marks. You can follow him at nsoli02, and the link to his YouTube channel is in the video description below. You can follow Grid Network all over social media as well. If you like today's show, consider investing in Grid Network by joining our Patreon. Big shout out to Colin, Mark, Deshell, and Robin. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Click on the link below to join our Patreon or buy me a coffee for a one-time donation. Also, you can use public.com to invest in the stock market. Use the code GRIDnet to earn free stocks. Get started and utilize the stock market for your own investment. And Nathan, before we go off the air tonight, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I'm just appreciative you guys having me on. Allowing me to kind of tell my story. I'm used to being the one asking the questions. So it's pretty cool to kind of have the roles reversed a little bit and just to be able to talk with you guys about my career up to this point, because it is pretty surreal to me that I've been able to accomplish so much at such a young age. I mean, I'm only 20 years old, so I'm very proud of what I've done up to now, and I'm very much looking forward to the future as well.
Well, Nathan, I'm 23, so it sounds like you're even a little bit ahead of where I am at this point in my career. But great to finally get to meet you face to face and have this conversation with you tonight and get to know you a little bit better. And we wish you nothing but the best in wherever your future career opportunities take you.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. Appreciate you for stopping by. Unfortunately, we're out of time for tonight. We hope you liked tonight's show, and we'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Grid.